Michael Jordan watches old game footage alone and breaks down at a moment the world missed. Before we get into the story, comment below where in the world you are watching from today, and if you like this story, don't forget to subscribe. Michael Jordan's story began long before he became a household name. Born in 1963 in Brooklyn, New York, his early life wasn't defined by privilege or fame, but by a relentless drive to prove himself. Raised in Wilmington, North Carolina, Jordan was one of 5 children in a tight-knit family. His parents, James and Dolores, pushed their children to work hard and respect others. The Jordan family wasn't rich, but they valued grit, perseverance, and discipline above all else. From the start, it was clear that Michael's work ethic was unmatched. His parents provided the foundation, but it was the competitive spirit in Michael that would eventually push him to greatness. Basketball entered Michael's life at a young age, but he wasn't always the prodigy he would become. He wasn't even the best player on his high school team. In fact, he was cut from the varsity basketball team in his sophomore year. This moment would fuel the fire that would eventually lead to his legendary career. Jordan's reaction to the rejection wasn't to give up. Instead, he used it as motivation to become better. Every morning before school, he was in the gym, practicing shots, working on his footwork, and sharpening his skills. That rejection, which would have crushed most kids, only made Michael more determined. During his junior year, he made the varsity team and quickly established himself as one of the most talented players in the state of North Carolina. But even as he gained recognition for his skills on the court, Michael faced personal challenges. His relationship with his father, who was a strong influence in his life, grew even closer. His father was always there, offering advice, pushing Michael to be the best version of himself, not just as a basketball player, but as a man. James Jordan Sr. wasn't just a father, he was a mentor, teaching Michael how to handle failure and success with humility. As his high school career progressed, Michael's name started circulating through the college basketball scene. By the time he reached his senior year, Jordan had grown into a force to be reckoned with. He was being recruited by top colleges across the country. But despite his newfound fame, he remained grounded. His work ethic never wavered, and his confidence continued to build. He had something to prove, and he was determined to make the most of his opportunity. When it came time to choose a college, Michael decided to stay close to home and play for the University of North Carolina. He joined legendary coach Dean Smith's program, and it didn't take long for Jordan to make an impact. In his first year at UNC, Michael helped lead the Tar Heels to the NCAA championship. In the final game, with less than a minute left, Jordan hit a clutch jump shot to give UNC the lead, sealing the victory. This moment, a simple shot to the outside observer, would define Jordan's career, his ability to perform in the clutch, under pressure, when everything was on the line. By the time he left UNC after his junior year, Michael had already become a household name in the basketball world. But his true test was still ahead. The 1984 NBA draft was the moment that would change the trajectory of his life forever. Jordan was selected by the Chicago Bulls with the 3rd overall pick. While the Bulls were a struggling team, Jordan's potential was undeniable. His combination of athleticism, skill, and fierce competitive nature was unlike anything the league had seen before. When Jordan arrived in Chicago, he didn't just bring his talent, he brought his ambition. He wanted to be the best, and he was willing to do whatever it took to reach that level. His first few seasons with the Bulls were a testament to his relentless drive. He quickly became the focal point of the team, and with each passing game, he proved that he was more than just a talented player. He was a winner. However, his early years in the NBA weren't without challenges. The Bulls were far from a championship-caliber team, and despite Jordan's individual success, they struggled to make a deep playoff run. But Jordan's mindset was always the same: winning was the only thing that mattered. Even as his individual accolades piled up, Rookie of the Year, multiple All-Star appearances, and scoring titles, he knew that the ultimate goal was a championship. And that would take more than just him. It would require a team, a system, and the right pieces around him. Jordan's frustration grew as his team faltered year after year, but his confidence never wavered. He knew what he was capable of, and he was determined to lead the Bulls to greatness. The 1986-87 season marked a turning point. Jordan was playing at an unprecedented level, averaging 37 points per game. He was taking over games single-handedly, but even then, the team was missing something. Despite his brilliance, the Bulls couldn't get past the playoff hump. Jordan's ability to carry a team was undeniable, but it was clear that he couldn't do it all alone. The NBA wasn't just about individual talent, it was about team dynamics, chemistry, and strategy. In the years that followed, Jordan began to push for changes within the organization. He needed better teammates, better coaches, and a system that would allow him to maximize his abilities. In 1989, the Bulls made a crucial move by hiring Phil Jackson as head coach. Jackson, with his unique coaching philosophy and emphasis on teamwork and balance, was the perfect fit for Jordan. He also brought along the famous triangle offense, which allowed Jordan to flourish in ways he hadn't before. With Jackson's leadership in the Bulls' improving roster, the team started to take off. Jordan, however, wasn't satisfied yet. He knew that no matter how great he was, the road to a championship would be filled with obstacles. The Detroit Pistons, a team known for their physical play, stood in his way. The Pistons had knocked the Bulls out of the playoffs for several years, and their rivalry was growing more intense by the day. Jordan's battles with the Pistons were more than just basketball, they were a test of willpower. Jordan had to become tougher, both physically and mentally, to overcome the bad boys of Detroit. Every time he was knocked down, he got back up. Every time they tried to bully him, he fought back harder. Jordan's transformation from a great player to a dominant force in the NBA was underway. But the road to greatness was far from over. The true test would come in the form of his first NBA championship. Michael Jordan's arrival on the NBA stage was nothing short of electrifying. His rookie season with the Chicago Bulls was a testament to his immediate impact. Despite the Bulls' struggles as a team, Jordan quickly became the focal point of the franchise, drawing crowds and attention wherever he played. His blend of athleticism, skill, and sheer will was a rarity in the NBA, and soon, his name became synonymous with scoring. By the end of his first season, Jordan had already proven that he wasn't just a great player, he was destined to reshape the game of basketball. His rookie year was filled with individual accolades, including a scoring title and a spot in the All-Star game. But the NBA, at its core, was about championships, and Jordan was not satisfied with individual success alone. The 1985-86 season marked a turning point for Jordan. He was no longer just a promising young player, he was one of the best in the league. That year, he led the league in scoring once again, putting up over 37 points per game. His ability to dominate offensively was unparalleled, and he showcased a relentless attacking style that left defenders helpless. But despite his individual brilliance, the Bulls still struggled to find success in the postseason. They were able to make it to the playoffs, but the team lacked the depth and cohesion needed to compete with the league's elite. The early years of Jordan's career were defined by his brilliance, but also by frustration. He was a force of nature on the court, capable of putting up historic numbers, but the Bulls couldn't seem to put the right pieces around him. He was a one-man show, carrying a team that didn't have the talent or structure to contend for a championship. This was especially evident in the Bulls' clashes with the Detroit Pistons, who were emerging as the dominant force in the Eastern Conference. The Pistons, led by Isaiah Thomas, had a reputation for being a gritty, physical team. Their style of play, dubbed the Bad Boys, was specifically designed to wear down opponents and take them out of their game. And no player was a bigger target for their aggressive play than Michael Jordan. Jordan's first playoff battles with the Pistons were a harsh lesson in the realities of the NBA. Despite his scoring prowess, the Pistons were able to neutralize him with physical defense, forcing him to play through injury and fatigue. The physicality of their defense, combined with the mental toll of losing year after year, began to take a toll on Jordan. His frustration mounted as he realized that no matter how great he was, he couldn't carry the Bulls past the Pistons on his own. The losses were painful, but they also made him more determined than ever to find a way to break through. In the summer of 1989, Jordan took a long, hard look at his game. He knew that to beat the Pistons, he would need to be more than just an individual scorer. He needed to evolve. The answer, he realized, was teamwork. While he had been dominant on the offensive end, he needed to improve his defense and learn how to get his teammates involved more. It was clear that the Bulls' chances of winning a championship would depend on the team's ability to gel, and Jordan, for all his individual brilliance, would need to lead by example. Enter Phil Jackson. Jackson, who had taken over as head coach of the Bulls in 1989, brought with him a philosophy that would change everything. Known for his deep understanding of the game and his ability to get the most out of his players, Jackson introduced the triangle offense. The system was built on creating space, moving the ball, and putting players in positions where they could make the most impact. It was the antithesis of the isolation-heavy style Jordan had used to carry the Bulls in the past. At first, Jordan was skeptical. He was used to having the ball in his hands and taking control of the game himself. But Jackson, with his calm and persuasive demeanor, convinced Jordan to trust the system. And trust it, he did. The 1989-90 season was the beginning of a new era for the Bulls. Jordan had bought into Jackson's system, and it paid immediate dividends. The Bulls were a more cohesive, dynamic team, and Jordan's scoring output remained as high as ever. But more importantly, he was becoming a better leader. He was learning to trust his teammates and was finally understanding that basketball was not just about individual brilliance, it was about creating something greater than the sum of its parts. The Chicago Bulls were finally a team to be reckoned with. They had the talent, the coaching, and the leadership to challenge the best teams in the NBA. And yet, despite their newfound confidence, the Detroit Pistons stood in their way once again. The two teams squared off in the Eastern Conference Finals in 1990, and the series was as brutal as ever. The Pistons, led by their own all-time great, Isaiah Thomas, were still the bullies of the Eastern Conference. They pushed, shoved, and taunted their way through every game, hoping to rattle Jordan and his teammates. But this time, the Bulls were different. Jordan, having transformed his game over the past year, was no longer the sole focus of the Pistons' defense. His teammates, including Scottie Pippen, Horace Grant, and John Paxson, were stepping up in ways they hadn't before. The Bulls weren't just relying on Jordan to carry them, they were a balanced, well-coached team, and they played with a chip on their shoulder. But the Pistons were still tough to beat. They took the first two games of the series, but the Bulls fought back, forcing a Game 7. It was a decisive moment in Jordan's career. Could he finally overcome the team that had been his biggest obstacle for years? The Bulls won Game 7 in a decisive fashion, breaking through the Pistons' defense and showing the world that they were ready to take the next step. Jordan was spectacular, but it was the team's overall effort that made the difference. They had finally broken the Pistons' stranglehold on the Eastern Conference, and Jordan's dream of winning an NBA championship was within reach. The 1991 NBA Finals marked the beginning of Jordan's dominance. Facing off against the Los Angeles Lakers, the defending champions, the Bulls were ready to prove that they were the new kings of the NBA. The Lakers, led by Magic Johnson, had their own legacy of greatness, but Jordan's Bulls were a different breed. Game 1 of the finals set the tone for what would become a one-sided series. Jordan was spectacular, putting up 36 points, and the Bulls took control of the series early. They never looked back, eventually winning the finals in 5 games. Jordan's first championship was a culmination of years of hard work, determination, and growth. But it was just the beginning. The real test of his legacy was still to come. The 1991 championship victory was just the beginning of a dynasty that would define an era in basketball. Michael Jordan, fresh off his first title, had already cemented his legacy as one of the game's greatest. But the real challenge for him and the Chicago Bulls was sustaining that success. The 1991-92 season was a statement, not only for Jordan but for the entire Bulls organization. Jordan's desire to be the best was unwavering, and he was determined to prove that his first championship wasn't a fluke. With the addition of key players like Tony Kukoc and the continued growth of Scottie Pippen, the Bulls had a roster that could compete with anyone. But what separated this team from all others was their mindset. Phil Jackson, who had successfully instilled the triangle offense in his players, had a team that was playing together in ways few could have imagined. Jackson's emphasis on teamwork, patience, and trusting the process was taking root. Jordan, no longer the lone star who had to shoulder the entire load, was surrounded by capable teammates who could share the responsibilities. It was the perfect balance between individual greatness and collective effort. Jordan, with his killer instinct, wasn't just scoring, he was making sure his teammates were involved and confident. This was a new side of Michael Jordan. He wasn't just chasing personal records or highlights, he was building something bigger. In the 1992 playoffs, the Bulls cruised through the first few rounds, but the true test came in the Eastern Conference Finals. This time, it wasn't the Detroit Pistons who stood in their way. It was the New York Knicks, another tough, defensive-minded team that was known for making life difficult for their opponents. The Knicks were gritty, physical, and determined, much like the Pistons of old. But this time, the Bulls were different. They were no longer simply relying on Jordan to bail them out. They were a cohesive, well-oiled machine that was capable of playing at a high level on both ends of the floor. Jordan was still the star, but his teammates were stepping up in ways they hadn't before. The series was a battle from start to finish. The Knicks weren't going to give up without a fight, but Jordan and the Bulls were too much. Every time New York tried to throw a punch, Chicago answered right back. In Game 3, Jordan delivered one of the most iconic moments of his career, his double-nickeled performance against the Knicks, where he dropped 55 points in a dominant display of scoring. It was the type of game that left fans in awe and sent a message to the rest of the league: Jordan was on a mission. The Bulls made quick work of the Knicks, advancing to the NBA Finals for the second consecutive year. The 1992 Finals was a showcase of two of the most storied franchises in NBA history, the Chicago Bulls and the Portland Trail Blazers. Portland, led by Clyde Drexler, had a talented team, but they were no match for a Bulls team that was firing on all cylinders. The series was more competitive than the final results suggested, but it was clear that the Bulls were the better team. Jordan's performance in the finals was nothing short of spectacular. Game 1 was particularly memorable, as Jordan hit 6 three-pointers in the first half, a rare feat for a player known for his mid-range game. That moment became part of the mythos of his greatness, a player who could dominate any aspect of the game at will. The Bulls won the 1992 Finals in 6 games, and Jordan was named Finals MVP. His second championship was not just a personal achievement, it was a validation of everything the Bulls had built. It proved that the first title wasn't a fluke and that this team, with its blend of talent, coaching, and chemistry, was capable of sustaining greatness. But even as Jordan basked in the glory of another championship, there was something more driving him. He wanted to be known as the greatest to ever play the game, and he was willing to do whatever it took to cement that legacy. By the time the 1992-93 season rolled around, the Bulls were the team to beat. They had the talent, the depth, and the experience to dominate the league. But as the season wore on, it became clear that Jordan was feeling the weight of the demands placed on him. He had led the Bulls to 2 consecutive championships, but there was a sense that he was starting to burn out. The grind of being the best, day in and day out, was taking its toll. In the midst of this pressure, Jordan faced a personal tragedy. His father, James Jordan Sr., was tragically murdered in the summer of 1993. The loss was devastating, and it shook Jordan to his core. For a while, Jordan struggled to cope with the grief. Basketball, which had always been his refuge, felt hollow. He had already accomplished so much in his career, but without his father's guidance and support, the game didn't feel the same. In a shocking move, Michael Jordan announced his retirement from basketball in October 1993, stepping away from the game at the peak of his powers. It was a decision that stunned the basketball world, leaving fans and analysts alike wondering if they had seen the last of one of the greatest players to ever live. Jordan's retirement was a testament to his love for the game and his need to step away for personal reasons. His time away was spent briefly pursuing a career in professional baseball, playing for the Birmingham Barons, a minor league affiliate of the Chicago White Sox. His time on the diamond wasn't the success he had hoped for, but it allowed Jordan to take a step back and grieve in his own way. Baseball gave him a break from the relentless pressures of basketball, but it was clear that the game of basketball still called to him. In March 1995, Jordan shocked the world once again when he announced his return to the NBA. His now famous press release simply read, "I'm back." With that, the basketball world was put on notice. Michael Jordan was returning to the Chicago Bulls, and his thirst for another championship was as strong as ever. His first few games back were filled with rust, but it didn't take long for Jordan to find his rhythm. He had returned to a team that had continued to win, with players like Scottie Pippen and Tony Kukoc still in their prime. The Bulls were primed for another run at a championship, and with Jordan back in the fold, the sky was the limit. Jordan's return to the Bulls was a triumphant one. He quickly regained his spot as the team's leader, and his influence on the court was felt immediately. The Bulls finished the regular season strong and entered the playoffs as the top seed in the Eastern Conference. The 1995-96 season was another landmark year for Jordan, as he helped lead the Bulls to their fourth championship in 6 years. But it wasn't just about the titles, it was about Michael Jordan's indelible mark on the game, and how he had once again proven that no matter the obstacle, no matter the challenge, he was destined for greatness. Michael Jordan's return to the NBA in 1995 was not just a comeback, it was the start of a new chapter in his already legendary career. The basketball world had watched his abrupt exit from the game 2 years earlier, and the question on everyone's mind was whether Jordan could recapture the form that had made him an icon. The Chicago Bulls, who had continued to win without him, were primed for another championship run, but the landscape of the NBA had changed during his absence. The competition was fierce, with new stars emerging and established teams strengthening their rosters. But Jordan wasn't concerned with what others were doing. He was focused solely on one thing: winning. The early part of Jordan's return was marked by some inevitable rust. His first few games were a reminder that even the greatest player of all time wasn't immune to the challenges of sitting out for a year and a half. His timing was off, and his conditioning wasn't quite what it used to be. But as the days passed and the games wore on, it became clear that Jordan's skill and basketball IQ were as sharp as ever. His ability to take over a game when it mattered most, to hit clutch shots and deliver in the most intense moments, hadn't gone anywhere. He was still Michael Jordan, and that was enough to make the Bulls contenders once again. What made Jordan's second stint with the Bulls so impactful was not just his scoring, but his ability to elevate the play of everyone around him. Scottie Pippen had already established himself as one of the best all-around players in the league, and now, with Jordan back, he was able to focus on his role as a leader on both ends of the court. Tony Kukoc, Steve Kerr, and Luke Longley, all key players in the Bulls system, benefited from Jordan's return, as he was able to get them involved in the offense while also trusting them to contribute when the game was on the line. The Bulls were no longer just Jordan's team, they were a true team, one that played with unity and purpose. In the 1995-96 season, the Chicago Bulls were the most dominant team in the NBA. They finished with an astounding 72-10 record, the best in NBA history at the time. Jordan was once again the focal point of the offense, averaging 30.4 points per game, but he was far from a one-man show. The Bulls' defense, led by Jordan's relentless effort on that end of the floor, was stifling. They dominated every aspect of the game, from scoring to rebounding to the fast break. They had all the pieces in place to win it all, and there was no doubt in anyone's mind that they were the team to beat. The 1996 playoffs were a showcase of the Bulls' dominance, and Jordan's leadership was never more evident. They made quick work of their first-round opponents, dispatching the Miami Heat in just 3 games. The second round was more challenging, as the Bulls faced a tough New York Knicks team that had given them problems in the past. But this time, the Bulls were different. With Jordan back, the Knicks were no match for Chicago's offensive firepower and suffocating defense. The Bulls won the series in 5 games, and they moved on to the Eastern Conference Finals to face the Orlando Magic. The Magic, led by Shaquille O'Neal and Penny Hardaway, had become one of the most talented teams in the East, and they posed a serious challenge to the Bulls' dominance. But Michael Jordan wasn't about to let anyone stand in his way. Despite the Magic's talent, the Bulls swept them in 4 games, with Jordan once again proving that when the pressure was on, he was at his best. Jordan's performance in Game 1 of the series was a testament to his greatness. He scored 45 points, taking control of the game in the second half and carrying his team to victory. The Magic, despite their talent, were no match for Jordan's will to win. In the NBA Finals, the Bulls squared off against the Seattle Supersonics, who had been one of the best teams in the Western Conference that season. Led by Gary Payton, Shawn Kemp, and a solid supporting cast, the Sonics were a formidable opponent. However, they were no match for the power of the Chicago Bulls. Despite some early resistance from the Sonics, the Bulls dominated the series. Jordan, as always, was the key to their success. In Game 6 of the Finals, with the Bulls up 3-2, Jordan sealed the championship with a 22-point performance. The Bulls won their fourth NBA title in 6 years, cementing their place as one of the greatest teams in NBA history. Jordan's return to the NBA had been more than just a personal triumph, it had reinvigorated the entire Chicago Bulls organization. The team was not only winning games, they were dominating the league. Jordan had reclaimed his position as the best player in the world, but this time, he had a better supporting cast than ever before. The Bulls were a true team, one that played selflessly, with chemistry and balance. It was no longer just about Michael Jordan's brilliance, it was about how that brilliance brought out the best in everyone around him. The 1996 season was a turning point in NBA history. The Bulls had redefined what it meant to be a championship team. They were a perfect blend of individual greatness and team unity, a model for how the game of basketball could be played. And while Jordan's individual performance was the focal point, it was clear that his return had elevated the entire team to a level few could have imagined. The 1996 championship wasn't just a title, it was a statement. The Bulls had reclaimed their place at the top of the NBA, and Michael Jordan had proven that even after a brief hiatus, he was still the best player in the world. But despite his dominance on the court, Jordan's return to the NBA was not without its challenges. The pressure to perform at an elite level every single game was immense. The expectations from fans, the media, and even his teammates were constantly high. Yet, Jordan thrived in this environment. The more pressure he faced, the more he delivered. His competitive spirit was insatiable, and it drove him to be the best version of himself every time he stepped onto the court. As the season wore on, it became clear that Jordan was not just chasing championships, he was chasing something more profound, his own legacy. He wanted to be remembered as the greatest player to ever play the game, and he was willing to do whatever it took to secure that place in history. The 1996 championship was another step toward that goal, but Jordan wasn't done yet. There was still more to achieve, more records to break, and more titles to win. The end of the 1996 season marked a new chapter for the Chicago Bulls and for Michael Jordan. The dynasty was in full swing, and with each passing year, the Bulls grew more confident and more dominant. But Jordan, for all his success, knew that the road to greatness wasn't easy. He had been to the top before, but to stay there, he would have to continue to fight, continue to evolve, and continue to prove that he was the greatest player to ever play the game. The challenge was never too much for him. After all, for Michael Jordan, the game wasn't just about winning, it was about proving, over and over again, that he was the best. And he was just getting started. By 1997, Michael Jordan and the Chicago Bulls were firmly entrenched as the NBA's most dominant force. They had redefined what it meant to be a championship team, and the world was watching as they sought to continue their reign. The 1996 championship had solidified their place at the top, but the real test now was maintaining that level of excellence. While the competition was fierce, the Bulls were ready to prove that they were more than just a one-hit wonder, they were a dynasty in the making. The 1997 season saw the Bulls, once again, at the top of their game. Michael Jordan, despite his age and the pressure of having to constantly perform at a high level, was as motivated as ever. The team around him had evolved too. Scottie Pippen was still the best all-around player in the league, and his impact on both ends of the floor could never be underestimated. Players like Steve Kerr, Tony Kukoc, and Luke Longley had become crucial parts of the team's success. The Bulls had built something that few teams had ever achieved, true chemistry and balance. But it was clear that the road to the championship wouldn't be easy. The Eastern Conference Finals in 1997 were a reminder of how competitive the NBA had become. The Bulls faced off against the Miami Heat, a team that had recently added Alonzo Mourning and Tim Hardaway to a roster already featuring players like Glenn Rice. The Heat were a talented squad, but the Bulls had something Miami couldn't match: experience. Jordan and Pippen, who had been through it all, were the perfect leaders for a team that needed to find its rhythm. And that's exactly what they did. Despite a hard-fought series, the Bulls ultimately outlasted the Heat, proving that their experience and depth were enough to push past any challenge. With the Eastern Conference Finals behind them, the Bulls set their sights on the NBA Finals, where they would face the Utah Jazz. The Jazz, led by Karl Malone and John Stockton, had been one of the most consistent teams in the league throughout the 1990s. They were tough, disciplined, and had a solid supporting cast. The matchup was compelling, two teams that had reached the pinnacle of success, but only one could claim the ultimate prize. Game 1 of the 1997 Finals was a physical battle from the opening tip. The Jazz, who had home court advantage, came out strong, with Malone and Stockton controlling the pace of the game. But the Bulls, led by the ever-unstoppable Jordan, quickly adjusted. In the second half, Jordan took over, scoring crucial baskets and leading the Bulls to a narrow victory. It was the type of performance that defined his career. Jordan, when the stakes were high, could rise above the competition and carry his team to victory. The series continued in the same vein. Utah was no slouch, and they fought hard in every game. Malone and Stockton were playing at their best, and the Jazz seemed poised to give the Bulls a serious challenge. But it was Jordan's leadership in the Bulls' defense that made the difference. In Game 5 of the series, Jordan delivered a performance that would go down as one of the most iconic in NBA history, his flu game. Jordan, visibly ill with the flu, was struggling to keep his energy up. He was dehydrated, weak, and barely able to stand. But despite these physical challenges, he refused to let his team down. In one of the most memorable moments in sports history, Jordan willed himself through the game, scoring 38 points and leading the Bulls to a 90-88 win. His sheer determination and willpower to win, even in such a debilitated state, elevated his legacy to a new level. The flu game was a testament to everything that made Jordan great: his toughness, his leadership, and his unrelenting desire to win at all costs. With the Bulls up 3-2 in the series, they returned to Chicago for Game 6, knowing that they were on the cusp of another championship. But Utah wasn't going down without a fight. The Jazz came out strong, and the game was neck and neck until the final minutes. The moment that would seal the Bulls' victory, and Jordan's place as the greatest player in NBA history, came with less than a minute left in the game. With the score tied, Jordan found himself with the ball in his hands. This was the moment he had lived for, the opportunity to make a difference when it mattered most. As the clock ticked down, Jordan calmly dribbled at the top of the key, sizing up the defense. He noticed that his defender had backed off slightly, giving him space. With the crowd on its feet, Jordan drove left, pulled up, and drained a jumper over the outstretched arm of a helpless Brian Russell. The shot fell cleanly through the net, and the Bulls took a 2-point lead with just 5.2 seconds remaining. The Bulls held on to win the game, and with it, their 5th championship in 7 years. The 1997 Finals were a crowning achievement for Michael Jordan. He was named Finals MVP for the 4th time in his career, cementing his legacy as not only the best player of his generation but arguably the best player in the history of the game. Jordan's performance in the 1997 Finals, and especially his flu game, was a testament to his greatness. He had faced adversity, both physical and mental, and had risen above it all. His will to win, his competitive spirit, and his leadership were what separated him from every other player in the league. The 1997 championship was a reminder of what made Michael Jordan the greatest: his ability to perform when it mattered most. But even with his 5th championship secured, Jordan wasn't content. He had already proven that he could win at the highest level, but his desire for greatness was insatiable. His competitive drive continued to push him forward, even as his body began to show the wear and tear of years of dominance. The 1997-98 season, the last of the Bulls dynasty, would be a year of both triumph and turbulence. The 1997-98 season was unlike any other. The tension within the Bulls organization was palpable. It was clear that this would be the final season for the team as it had been constructed. With Jordan's return to the team, it was understood that the clock was ticking on this group's run of dominance. Coach Phil Jackson, who had helped lead the Bulls to 5 championships, was also on the verge of leaving the team. The players, knowing that this could be their last chance together, played with a sense of urgency and focus. Jordan, as always, was the focal point of the offense, but there was a sense that the team was playing not just for a 6th championship but for closure, for the end of an era. Jordan had already proven everything he needed to prove, yet his fire and drive for more championships remained. The Bulls were still the team to beat, and Jordan wasn't about to let up now. Each game, each practice, was an opportunity for him to assert his dominance and cement his place as the best to ever play the game. With the 1998 finals approaching, there was one thing on his mind: securing that elusive 6th title and closing the chapter on a dynasty that had forever changed the game of basketball. As the 1998 NBA season progressed, the Chicago Bulls were on a mission to close the chapter on their incredible dynasty, led by Michael Jordan. Despite the challenges, tensions, and rumors swirling around the team, they were still a force to be reckoned with. It was clear this would be the final season for many of the core players in their current form: Coach Phil Jackson, Scottie Pippen, and Jordan himself. The pressure was immense, but so was the desire to win one final championship. For Jordan, the stakes were personal. It wasn't just about adding another title to his already glittering legacy, it was about proving that his competitive spirit, drive, and ability to win were unmatched, even in the face of adversity. The 1997-98 season wasn't just another year in Jordan's career. It was a culmination of everything he had fought for throughout his entire life. The Last Dance, as it would later be dubbed, symbolized the end of an era for the Bulls and for the NBA. The team had won 5 championships in 7 years, but there was no guarantee that they could repeat that success. With the off-court drama and a roster that was becoming more fragmented by the day, no one was certain how this final season would play out. But one thing was for sure: Michael Jordan was determined to give everything he had left. Throughout the season, the Bulls faced challenges on multiple fronts. The locker room was tense, and there were constant reminders that this would be the final year for many of the team's key contributors. Jackson had announced that he would step down after the season, Pippen's future with the team was uncertain, and the team was often criticized for their internal friction. Despite all of this, Jordan remained focused on his one goal: another championship. He knew that for him, the ultimate measure of greatness was winning, and there would be no better way to solidify his legacy than by leading the Bulls to one more title. As the regular season came to an end, the Bulls' playoff berth was secured, but the road to another championship wouldn't be easy. The Eastern Conference was filled with teams hungry for their shot at dethroning the defending champions, and the competition was fierce. The Indiana Pacers, led by Reggie Miller, had emerged as one of the most formidable opponents in the East. The Pacers had pushed the Bulls to the limit the previous year in the Eastern Conference Finals, and they were ready for another shot. But even as the Pacers were brimming with confidence, Jordan was unfazed. He had been in tough situations before, and the pressure of a high-stakes playoff series was where he thrived. In the Eastern Conference Finals, the Bulls found themselves up against the Pacers once again, this time with the series tied 3-3 and Game 7 looming. The tension was palpable, and the outcome of the game would determine who would advance to the NBA Finals. In the moments leading up to Game 7, the entire Bulls team, Jordan included, knew that this was the final test before the championship round. The Pacers, with their youthful energy and determination, were giving the Bulls all they could handle, but it was Jordan who rose to the occasion in the most critical moment. In Game 7, Jordan showed why he was the ultimate competitor. Despite a strong effort from Reggie Miller and the Pacers, Jordan delivered when it mattered most. He scored crucial points and played stifling defense, guiding the Bulls to a hard-fought victory. It wasn't the blowout win many had expected from the defending champions, but it was enough to keep their championship hopes alive. The 88-83 victory marked the Bulls' return to the NBA Finals, but it also served as a reminder that no matter how much talent there was around him, it was Michael Jordan who was the ultimate difference maker. As the Bulls prepared for the 1998 NBA Finals, they were once again faced with a familiar opponent, the Utah Jazz. The two teams had met in the finals 2 years earlier, and the Jazz were determined to avenge their defeat. Karl Malone, the reigning MVP, and John Stockton were playing at the peak of their careers, and the Jazz were a more complete team than ever before. The stage was set for another epic finals series, with the two teams once again fighting for supremacy. But for Jordan, it wasn't just about the competition, it was about finishing what he had started. This was his final opportunity to capture a sixth title, and he wasn't about to let it slip away. The finals began with the Bulls looking to defend their home court, and Jordan quickly reminded everyone why he was still the best player in the world. Despite the close games, Jordan's ability to make plays in the clutch set him apart. Throughout the series, he put on a show, scoring 30 or more points in each game, and providing the leadership the Bulls needed in key moments. But the most iconic moment of the finals came in Game 5, when Jordan, in his classic fashion, delivered one of the most memorable shots in basketball history. With the Bulls leading the series 3-1, they traveled to Utah for Game 5, knowing that one win would seal their sixth championship. The game was intense, with both teams trading baskets and playing physical defense. With less than a minute left, the Bulls were up by 3, but the Jazz had possession, and the game was far from decided. As the Jazz worked their offense, Jordan found himself guarding Malone, who was looking to make his move. It was at this moment that Jordan did what only he could do. He intercepted a pass, stealing the ball and effectively ending the Jazz's hopes of making a comeback. The steal was only part of the drama. With the Bulls still holding a slim lead, the ball was once again in Jordan's hands with under 30 seconds left. The crowd was roaring as he dribbled to the top of the key, sizing up his defender. The tension was palpable. Jordan then took one step back, drained a three-pointer, and gave the Bulls a 6-point lead with just seconds remaining. That shot, now known as the last shot, was the culmination of everything Jordan had achieved in his career. It was a fitting moment for a player whose legacy had been built on moments just like this one. He had done it again, in his final NBA Finals game, and secured the championship in dramatic fashion. The Bulls won the game 87-86, completing their second three-peat and giving Michael Jordan his sixth NBA championship. His performance in the finals, particularly in Game 5, solidified his legacy as the greatest basketball player to ever play the game. His ability to dominate on both ends of the floor, his leadership, and his ability to perform under pressure had once again proven that he was in a class of his own. Jordan was named Finals MVP for the sixth time, a feat unmatched by any player in NBA history. As Jordan stood on the podium, holding his sixth championship trophy, he knew that this was the end of an era. His career, which had been filled with unparalleled success, had reached its ultimate conclusion. He had nothing left to prove. The Chicago Bulls, with Jordan at the helm, had redefined what it meant to be a champion. And with that final championship, Michael Jordan's legacy was secure. After winning his sixth NBA championship in 1998, Michael Jordan's place in basketball history was undeniably secure. He had built a legacy that would be remembered for generations. But as he sat in the locker room, holding the NBA Finals MVP trophy for the sixth time, Jordan knew that his journey wasn't over, at least not in the way many expected. The 1998 season had been a grueling one, not just physically but emotionally. It marked the end of an era for the Chicago Bulls, and Jordan's sixth title wasn't just another accolade, it was the closing of a chapter in his career and in the history of the NBA. Jordan had already achieved everything a player could dream of: 6 championships, 5 MVPs, numerous scoring titles, and countless other individual honors. But for him, the finality of it all was bittersweet. The last shot in the 1998 Finals, the one that sealed his sixth championship and cemented his legacy as the greatest player of his era, was symbolic. He had reached the peak of his career and left no question about his dominance. But the decision to retire, once again, came with its own internal struggle. Jordan had already stepped away from the game once, in 1993, to pursue a career in baseball following the tragic death of his father. After returning to the NBA in 1995, he led the Bulls to 3 more titles. His dominance, however, came at a cost. The pressure of being the greatest, coupled with the physical toll the game had taken on his body, made it clear that the end of his career was near. Jordan's final season with the Bulls wasn't just about basketball, it was about his relationships with his teammates, his family, and his own mental state as he prepared to walk away from the game for the second time. As the 1998 season went on, Jordan's body began to show signs of wear. The years of relentless competition, constant scrutiny, and the stress of maintaining perfection began to weigh on him. Yet, he still played at an elite level, leading the Bulls through the regular season and into the playoffs. His performances in the postseason were, as always, spectacular. He wasn't just a scorer, he was a leader, a motivator, and the heartbeat of the Bulls. Every time he took the court, his commitment to winning was evident. Jordan knew this would be his final opportunity to achieve what he'd set out to do when he first entered the NBA, win again, leave on top, and prove that his legacy would stand the test of time. The Bulls' path to the 1998 Finals was not without difficulty. There were moments of tension, particularly with coach Phil Jackson's future with the team and Scottie Pippen's contract situation. Pippen, who had been a constant companion to Jordan during their years of dominance, had faced personal struggles that carried over into the season. There were rumors that this was going to be the last year for Jackson as head coach, and for many players, this season felt like it could very well be their last dance with Jordan. The atmosphere around the Bulls was one of uncertainty, yet Jordan was unwavering. He was determined to lead the team to one more title, no matter what was happening off the court. In the finals, the Bulls faced a Utah Jazz team that had come into their own during the late 1990s. Karl Malone and John Stockton, the two leaders of the Jazz, were now in the twilight of their careers, but they were still capable of taking over games. The Jazz were a disciplined, well-coached team with the capability of matching up with the Bulls in terms of talent and execution. But the one thing the Jazz didn't have was Michael Jordan. As he had done countless times before, Jordan elevated his game when it mattered most. His scoring, his defense, and his ability to make plays in the clutch gave the Bulls the edge in each game, even when they found themselves in tough situations. Game 5 of the 1998 Finals marked the pinnacle of Jordan's career. Even in the face of physical exhaustion and the mental weight of it all, he delivered. With less than a minute left and the Bulls leading by 3, Jordan made a play that would go down in history. He stole the ball from Malone in one of the most iconic defensive plays of his career, a moment that demonstrated his commitment to every facet of the game. Then, in the final moments, with the Bulls holding a slim lead, Jordan sealed the victory with what would become known as his last shot. The shot, a jump shot over the outstretched arms of Brian Russell, gave the Bulls a 6-point lead with 5.2 seconds left, effectively clinching the game and the series. It was the perfect ending, a moment that encapsulated everything Jordan had done throughout his career. Jordan's final shot in that Game 6 of the 1998 Finals was more than just a championship-winning basket. It was the culmination of years of relentless dedication, a tribute to his drive, his competitive spirit, and his desire to leave the game on his terms. When the final buzzer sounded and the Bulls had secured their 6th NBA title, it was clear that this was the end of an era for both the Chicago Bulls and Michael Jordan. The dynasty was over, but Jordan's legacy was forever etched in the annals of basketball history. Following the championship win, Jordan once again stepped away from the game, this time with a sense of finality that was different from his first retirement. There would be no return this time. Jordan knew that his body could no longer withstand the rigors of the NBA, and his competitive fire, while still burning, could not be reignited. He had achieved everything he set out to accomplish, and he had done so on his own terms. The 1998 championship was not just about basketball, it was about legacy, family, and knowing when to walk away. In the years that followed, Jordan's influence on the game continued to grow. He became a global icon, not only because of his basketball talent but because of the way he changed the business of sports, the culture surrounding it, and the standard for excellence in all fields. His post-basketball career saw him become a successful businessman, part owner of the Charlotte Hornets, and a beloved figure whose impact on the game of basketball was felt for generations. Jordan's influence on the game, and the world, extended far beyond the basketball court. The impact of his career reached the hearts and minds of fans from every corner of the globe. His air of invincibility, his refusal to back down, and his relentless pursuit of greatness served as inspiration for countless athletes across all sports. Jordan had proven that greatness wasn't just about talent, it was about the mindset, the work ethic, and the will to succeed, no matter the obstacles in your way. And so, as Michael Jordan retired for the second time, he left behind not only 6 NBA championships and 5 MVP awards, but a blueprint for greatness that would inspire future generations. His place in the basketball pantheon was secure, and his legacy was far from over. Even though he had walked away from the game, Michael Jordan's influence would remain felt throughout the sport for as long as basketball existed. He had set the standard for what it meant to be the best, and he had done so with an unwavering commitment to excellence. Michael Jordan, the player, the competitor, and the icon, would always be remembered as the greatest to ever play the game. Michael Jordan's second retirement in 1999 was a momentous event in the world of sports. It signified not only the end of the Chicago Bulls dynasty but also the closure of an era in the NBA. After 6 championships, 5 MVP awards, and countless other records and accolades, Jordan had accomplished everything a player could dream of. Yet, his decision to walk away from basketball was met with mixed emotions. To the world, it marked the end of an extraordinary run by the greatest player the game had ever seen, but for Jordan himself, it was a time to reflect on what he had achieved and what his life would look like next. When he first retired in 1993, Jordan had taken time off to grieve the loss of his father, James Jordan Sr., and to pursue a career in professional baseball. That stint in baseball, though not successful by his standards, was part of Jordan's journey. It allowed him the space to heal and refocus, and when he returned to basketball in 1995, he was more determined than ever. His second retirement was different. This time, he was leaving the game at the height of his powers, having just led the Bulls to their 6th championship in 8 years. Jordan's legacy was firmly cemented. He had achieved what few players could ever dream of. He had dominated his sport for over a decade, led one of the most successful teams in sports history, and become a global icon in the process. His Air Jordan brand had revolutionized the way athletes could market themselves, and his influence stretched far beyond the basketball court. However, as Jordan stepped away from the game, he realized there was more to life than basketball. For the first time in his career, Jordan was free from the constant pressure of living up to the expectations placed upon him. There would be no more games to win, no more championships to chase, and no more comparisons to be made. He could now focus on his family, his business ventures, and his legacy outside the realm of basketball. However, the competitive fire that had driven him for so long still burned deep within him. He had always been someone who thrived on challenges, and without basketball, he had to find new ways to channel that energy. The first phase of his post-basketball life saw him focus on building his business empire. Michael Jordan had always been an astute businessman, and his partnership with Nike to create the Air Jordan sneaker line had become one of the most successful athlete endorsements of all time. Jordan's influence in the fashion and footwear world was unparalleled, and his brand continued to grow even after his retirement. His financial success off the court became as iconic as his basketball achievements, and his ability to navigate the business world with the same tenacity he had shown on the court made him a powerful figure in the sports industry. But it wasn't just about business for Jordan. He had always been deeply involved with his family, and retirement allowed him more time to be a father, a husband, and a private individual. The media had always been fascinated with his personal life, but Jordan was never one to seek the spotlight off the court. Retirement gave him the freedom to live a more personal life, free from the scrutiny that had followed him throughout his career. He was able to spend more time with his children and focus on his role as a father. For someone who had always been so driven, it was a new kind of challenge, a chance to balance his personal life with the success he had achieved. Despite his focus on business and family, Jordan's competitive nature never truly left him. He stayed involved in basketball, but in a different way. He became a part owner and the head of basketball operations for the Washington Wizards in 2000. Jordan's transition from player to executive was met with mixed reactions, but he was determined to apply his knowledge and passion for the game in a new capacity. However, as much as he loved the game, being a part owner of a team was far from the same as playing. Jordan missed the rush of competition, the thrill of stepping onto the court, and the challenge of facing off against the best players in the world. In 2001, Jordan made the announcement that would shock the sports world once again. He was coming out of retirement for a second time. At the age of 38, he was going to return to the NBA, this time as a member of the Washington Wizards. His decision was met with skepticism by some and excitement by others. After all, Jordan was no longer the young, athletic phenom who had dominated the league in the 1990s. He was older, and the game had evolved. But for Jordan, the decision to return was simple. The competitive fire that had fueled his career for so long still burned inside him, and he wasn't ready to walk away from the game just yet. Jordan's return to the NBA in 2001 was a reminder of his greatness. While he was no longer the player he had been in his prime, he was still one of the best in the game. His scoring ability, leadership, and basketball IQ were still evident, and he quickly became a key player for the Wizards. But it was clear that this was not the same Michael Jordan who had led the Bulls to 6 championships. His body, which had been through years of grueling competition, was no longer as resilient as it once had been. Yet, Jordan proved that even in his later years, he could still make a significant impact on the court. Jordan played 2 seasons with the Wizards, helping lead them to the playoffs in 2002. However, his second stint in the NBA was less about championships and more about his love for the game. He wanted to prove to himself, and to the world, that he could still compete at the highest level. By the time the 2003 season came to a close, Jordan knew that his time in the NBA was finally over. His body could no longer keep up with the demands of the game, and the decision to retire for a second time came as no surprise. This time, there would be no more returns. Jordan's final retirement in 2003 marked the end of an era. He had given everything to the game of basketball, and his influence continued to reverberate long after he had left the court. His legacy as the greatest basketball player of all time was secure, and his impact on the sport was immeasurable. Beyond his championships and accolades, Jordan had changed the way athletes viewed their careers and their brands. He had redefined what it meant to be a global icon, and his influence stretched far beyond basketball. In the years that followed, Jordan remained a beloved figure in the sports world. He continued to be involved in basketball, but in a different way. As an owner of the Charlotte Hornets, he remained active in the sport, and his insights were sought after by players, coaches, and analysts alike. His impact on the game of basketball, both as a player and as an executive, was undeniable. Jordan's story was far from over. He had gone from a young, hungry athlete with something to prove, to a global icon who changed the game forever. His legacy was built on more than just his statistics and championships. It was built on his determination, his work ethic, and his will to win at all costs. Jordan was more than just a basketball player. He was a symbol of excellence, and his influence on the world of sports and beyond would last for generations. He had given everything to the game, and in return, the game had given him a legacy that would never be forgotten. Michael Jordan's legacy was no longer just defined by his basketball accomplishments, it had transcended the sport itself. By the time he had made his final retirement in 2003, Jordan had become a global symbol of excellence, achievement, and the pursuit of greatness. His influence extended far beyond the basketball court, affecting everything from the marketing of athletes to the global popularity of the NBA. Yet, as he retired from playing for the second time, Jordan found himself in a position to redefine what it meant to leave a lasting impact on the world. The years after his retirement were far from idle. Jordan's return to the game with the Washington Wizards had been about proving to himself that he still had the competitive fire that made him the best, but it also set the stage for his future. Once his playing days were over, the competitive nature that had pushed him to greatness in basketball found new outlets in business and philanthropy. It wasn't just enough for him to be remembered as the greatest player in NBA history. Jordan had a vision to use his platform to influence the future, both in and outside of sports. In the early 2000s, Jordan focused much of his attention on his business ventures, the most notable being his relationship with Nike. The Air Jordan brand, which had begun in 1984, had become an empire of its own, and Jordan was no longer just a figurehead. His brand was worth billions, and the legacy of his signature shoes and apparel continued to grow even after his playing career had ended. Air Jordans became more than just basketball shoes, they were cultural icons, worn by athletes and non-athletes alike. This business success was one of the many ways Jordan would influence the next generation, showing how athletes could build empires off their athletic achievements. Jordan's connection with Nike was more than just financial. It was a partnership that changed the landscape of athlete endorsements forever. At the time, no one had ever seen a player with such an influential personal brand, and Jordan's success helped establish the blueprint for future athletes to capitalize on their name and likeness in ways that weren't just about the sport they played. It also marked the beginning of a shift in how brands and athletes interacted, with Jordan leading the way for younger players to forge their own paths in terms of marketing, sponsorships, and entrepreneurial endeavors. His influence in the business world became as monumental as his impact on the basketball court. Another key aspect of Jordan's life post-retirement was his involvement in philanthropy. As successful as his basketball career had been, Jordan knew that the game had given him more than just wealth and fame, it had given him the opportunity to give back to others. Over the years, Jordan used his platform to raise awareness for various charitable causes. His foundation, the Jordan Brand, became a source of funding for numerous community initiatives, especially those focused on youth development, education, and health. Jordan's efforts in these areas showcased another side of his character, his desire to improve the lives of others. His most significant philanthropic contributions came through his involvement with organizations that worked with underprivileged youth. Jordan created scholarship programs and donated millions to educational institutions and healthcare initiatives. He was a vocal advocate for social issues, particularly those related to the well-being of young people, believing that his platform could be used to effect real, positive change. He recognized that he could not only be a role model on the court but also off it, and he worked to ensure his impact was far-reaching. In 2010, Jordan made history once again, this time as a businessman and sports executive, when he became the principal owner of the Charlotte Hornets. He had become the first former NBA player to own an NBA team, a move that allowed him to shape the future of the league in a new way. As owner of the Hornets, Jordan transitioned from being the player in the spotlight to an executive making key decisions that would determine the success of his franchise. His deep knowledge of the game and his unmatched work ethic were now applied to the day-to-day operations of a professional basketball team. Becoming an owner brought its own challenges. The Hornets, under Jordan's ownership, went through periods of rebuilding and had their share of struggles, but Jordan's approach was one of long-term vision. His tenure as an owner was a testament to his ability to adapt. While he may have been known for his competitive nature on the court, he was just as committed to creating a winning culture off of it. He invested in the development of young players, emphasizing the importance of teamwork, discipline, and leadership, values that had always been central to his own success. Jordan's transition from player to owner was not just a career shift, it was a continuation of his legacy. His leadership was now focused on fostering the next generation of NBA talent, and his influence on the game was still being felt. The success of his Hornets team, even if measured by progress rather than championships, further solidified his place in NBA history. Jordan had already redefined the way athletes interacted with their teams, their sponsors, and their fans, and now he was helping to shape the future of the league from a new perspective. Despite his success as an owner, Jordan never fully retreated from the public eye. His competitive spirit was still very much alive. In interviews, on social media, and in the occasional public appearance, Jordan remained a force to be reckoned with. Fans and players alike still saw him as the benchmark for greatness, even if he was no longer lacing up his sneakers. Every time he was seen or heard, there was still a sense of awe, as if people were witnessing something rare, someone who had truly mastered the art of greatness. Throughout his post-basketball life, Jordan's influence also extended to the world of media. His presence on television and in documentaries kept his legacy alive, and his role in the production of The Last Dance, a 2020 documentary series that chronicled the final season of the Bulls' 1990s dynasty, was a testament to his ongoing impact on basketball culture. The documentary provided a unique, behind-the-scenes look at his life and career, allowing a new generation of fans to appreciate the drive, dedication, and determination that had made him a global icon. As The Last Dance captivated millions of viewers around the world, it also reminded everyone of just how monumental Michael Jordan's impact had been, not just on the game of basketball, but on the world at large. His personality, competitiveness, and the way he carried himself on and off the court had set a new standard for athletes everywhere. The documentary allowed Jordan to reflect on his career and legacy in a way he hadn't done before, giving him a chance to provide insight into his mindset during the moments that defined his career. As Jordan's life entered its later stages, it was clear that his influence would continue to ripple across the world. His story was one of persistence, excellence, and reinvention. From his first steps onto the court as a young player for the Chicago Bulls to his final moments in the NBA, Michael Jordan had redefined what it meant to be a champion, a competitor, and a leader. He had set a standard that few could ever hope to reach. And in his post-basketball life, Jordan showed that his impact extended far beyond the game, touching the lives of millions in ways that transcended sports. Through his business ventures, philanthropic efforts, and ownership of the Charlotte Hornets, Jordan's legacy was further cemented as one of the most influential and enduring in the history of sports. His brand, his philanthropic work, and his contributions to the growth of the NBA ensured that his story would live on, not just as a basketball player, but as a global icon whose impact would be felt for generations to come. The world knew Michael Jordan as his Ernest, but his legacy was about more than just his basketball career. It was about how he changed the game of sports forever. Michael Jordan's story, spanning more than 2 decades, had already defined what it meant to be the greatest. He had won 6 NBA championships, 5 MVP awards, and countless accolades that shaped the way the game of basketball would be remembered. Yet, his influence reached far beyond the basketball court. His unparalleled work ethic, relentless drive, and iconic moments in the NBA were only part of what made him the legend he became. The legacy of Michael Jordan wasn't just about championships, it was about how he had changed the culture of sports, both on and off the court. And as he entered his post-basketball life, the world was ready to see how his journey would continue to unfold. In retirement, Jordan had become a symbol of excellence in every sense. His transition from a player to a businessman, philanthropist, and team owner was a testament to his adaptability and his drive to remain relevant in every aspect of life. The competitive fire that once fueled his incredible performances on the court was now channeled into his business ventures, community work, and his role with the Charlotte Hornets. While his playing days were over, Jordan remained connected to the game in ways few athletes ever could. And yet, despite all his success, he never lost the love for basketball that had originally made him great. By 2020, the NBA was celebrating the 30th anniversary of his first title, and Jordan's influence was still felt deeply throughout the league. It was at this time that the documentary The Last Dance aired, revisiting the final season of the Chicago Bulls dynasty. The series not only brought new light to Jordan's unparalleled achievements, but also offered the world a glimpse into the man behind the legend. The documentary served as a reflection on his career, showcasing the sacrifices, triumphs, and pressures that came with being Michael Jordan. It was a fitting tribute to his impact on the game, reminding fans and players alike why he was, and still is, regarded as the greatest. Watching The Last Dance gave Jordan the opportunity to revisit his past and reflect on his journey. The moments that defined his career, the first shot in the 1982 NCAA Finals, the 1986 playoff game where he dropped 63 points on the Celtics, the flu game, the final shot in the 1998 Finals, had become part of the NBA's mythology. His career was filled with iconic moments, but it was his journey, the obstacles he overcame, and the relentless pursuit of greatness that set him apart. For Jordan, this was never about being the best basketball player in the world, it was about being the best version of himself. His unmatched drive, work ethic, and determination were not just limited to his basketball career. They were the principles that guided him in every aspect of his life, whether in business, philanthropy, or his personal relationships. Michael Jordan had always been a symbol of greatness, but his legacy had evolved. It was no longer just about winning titles or setting records. It was about inspiring the next generation of athletes, entrepreneurs, and individuals to chase their dreams with the same intensity and focus that he did. As the years passed, Jordan's presence in basketball remained strong. He remained an influential figure within the NBA, not just as an owner of the Charlotte Hornets, but as a mentor to younger players. His wisdom, shaped by his own experience, became a valuable resource for the future of the game. Today's NBA players still look to Jordan for guidance, not just in how to dominate on the court, but in how to approach their careers and lives off the court. He was no longer just a player, he had become a coach, an owner, and an example of how to turn success into a legacy that would last far beyond one's career. Jordan's work off the court had a profound impact as well. He was more than just a businessman, he was someone who had used his wealth and platform to help others. Through his foundation, Jordan had donated millions to causes that were close to his heart, particularly those focused on education, youth programs, and healthcare for underserved communities. His philanthropic efforts helped to build schools, provide scholarships, and offer support to those who were less fortunate. His commitment to giving back showed that his legacy was about more than just personal achievement, it was about lifting others up and making a difference in the world. As he entered his later years, Jordan continued to live with the same drive and passion that had defined his playing career. He was involved in various ventures, including producing documentaries, attending major events, and advocating for causes that mattered to him. He had built a legacy that would not only be remembered in the history books, but in the way the next generation of athletes viewed themselves. Jordan had shown that greatness wasn't just about talent, it was about how hard you were willing to work, how you treated others, and how you handled success and failure alike. The final chapter of Jordan's story wasn't just about his basketball career, it was about how his influence shaped the world. His legacy would continue to inspire and motivate people to pursue excellence in everything they did. His commitment to pushing boundaries, breaking records, and rewriting the narrative of what an athlete could accomplish had opened doors for countless others. From his role as an ambassador for the game of basketball to his contributions in the business world and his philanthropic efforts, Michael Jordan's legacy was an enduring reminder of what it meant to be truly great. As Jordan reflects on his life, it is clear that his journey was far from ordinary. He had come from humble beginnings and risen to become one of the most influential figures in sports history. His career was a testament to the power of hard work, perseverance, and an unwavering belief in oneself. He had faced adversity at every stage, yet he continued to rise above it, redefining what it meant to be a champion. In the end, Michael Jordan's story is one of greatness, not just on the court but in every facet of life. His legacy as the greatest basketball player of all time will never be surpassed, but his influence will continue to inspire future generations for years to come. From his 6 championships and 5 MVPs to his role as a businessman, philanthropist, and mentor, Jordan has shown that true greatness is about more than just winning. It's about making a lasting impact, leaving a legacy that transcends the game, and inspiring others to chase their own dreams with the same intensity and passion that he did. Michael Jordan's journey may have started on a basketball court, but it didn't end there. His legacy is eternal, one of determination, excellence, and the belief that anything is possible with hard work and dedication.